Okay. 3, 2, 1. This podcast shit.
You're like, damn it!
This podcast contains. Now stop interrupting me, damn it! This podcast contains explicit language. Jesus.
This episode of Dorking Out is brought to you by
Stark Industries, changing the world for a better future.
Houston, flight is go.
Myla, let's go. SPM. Safety contact.
From Assignment X, thesoniashow.com, and Amalgamated Storytelling, this is the Dorking Out Show, the podcast for people who love stories from movies, TV, books, podcasts, and everywhere else.
Welcome to episode 100 of Dorking Out. 100!
What are we doing to celebrate episode 100? Nothing! It's just a number.
This is the Wakanda Forever Black Panther edition. With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author, Christopher Allen Smith.
And with me today is my co-host, professional writer and author of The Sonia Show, Sonia Mansfield. Well,
howdy.
Hey, how's it going? Sonia, here
Yes.
we are at our quarterly report on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Black Panther, one of the most anticipated movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe phenomenon, has finally arrived, and wow! Directed by Ryan Coogler from a script written by him and Joe Robert Cole, the Black Panther stars a murderer's row of talented African and African American actors, headlined by Chadwick Boseman. Joining him is Coogler CREED star Michael B. Jordan, along with Angela Bassett, Lupita Nyong'o, Forrest Whitaker, Sterling K. Brown, Letitia Wright, Danai Gurira, Daniel Kaluuya. What's the last movie you saw that has this many Oscar winners and Oscar nominees in the cast, in like secondary supporting roles? Daniel Kaluuya, he's up for best actor from Get Out, and here he is, like 10th from the top. Sorry. Anyway, I got distracted. Also, there's Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis. Black Panther is the 18th Marvel Cinematic Universe, and for those of you playing the James Bond comparison game, the 18th James Bond movie was the supernaturally forgettable Tomorrow Never Dies. Think about all the ups and downs and restarts and screw-ups the James Bond series had gotten through when it got to its 18th movie, and then think about the Black Panther and what they've done here. It is insane. Anyway, Black Panther tells the story of T'Challa, the new king of Wakanda, and the latest in a long line of Black Panthers as he ascends to the throne of his mysterious kingdom, while at the same time trying to protect it from threats outside and in. Speaking of James Bond, Black Panther is a crazy mix of James Bond, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and Iron Man. That is a hell of a combination for any movie to deal with. So, Sonia, this movie has titanic amounts of hype around it. It has huge expectations that I think is unfair to ask of any movie. It's got a truckload of cinematic influences. Was Coogler able to wrangle all of this into a satisfying film?
I say yes. I really, really like this movie. I thought it was really entertaining. I love the world that it built. Like, it's not just part of, there's a whole country that it basically builds for us. And I think it was really original and really cool. I super love the cast. I think it has the best villain that we've seen in a really, really long time.
Yes. Yeah.
My husband and I saw this movie last night, and we were talking about it again this morning. And I was like, this might be the Michael B. Jordan as Eric Killmonger might be the best villain I've seen in a comic book movie since Heath Ledger's The Joker. Like, I feel like in other Marvel movies, the villain, unless it's Thanos, basically, they're kind of a MacGuffin.
Right.
Like, you know, they're just really about like, especially in these like origin story, those first part movies. I don't want to say origin stories because we've already met Black Panther, but you know what I mean? Like those first movies.
Yeah.
Like I don't remember. I was like, I don't even remember who the villain was in Iron Man 2, but he had like a whip, and my husband's like, you mean Whiplash? Like,
that's right.
But I'm like, but I don't know. Like, I don't remember his name. Like, I will remember Eric Killmonger, and I thought he was a really interesting villain with like an interesting idea that like I was like, well, I kind of agree, but like he's going about it in like a really bad way. Like he's not a like cat stroking like James Bond villain. Like he's really smart and really charismatic, and he's got like a really good like there's what he wants to achieve is like. It's not like, I just want to blow up the world or, you know, like there's something there. If he's just going about it the wrong way. It's such like, I have a million things to say. What did you think before I start just gushing?
I liked it an awful lot. There's a lot to like here. And I think my top line reaction is I like huge amounts of this. I was really impressed by if you had said to me, I want to watch a movie that combines the intrigue of Game of Thrones, the futurism of Iron Man, and just the globe-trotting craziness of James Bond movies. I would say that sounds great in theory, but every movie I've seen that tries to be that ambitious just falls on its face in an embarrassing mess. Mm-hmm. And this really pulls it off. This, you know, and plus they're creating the entire world of this hyper technologically advanced, you know, fictional country of Wakanda. The fact that Ryan Coogler is able to land so many of the shots that he takes in this is astounding. It's just incredible. It is really, really good. My only drawback is that he tries so much, and there's so much in here that I feel like near the last third of the movie, different plot threads start to really bump into each other. And, you know, we have this kind of Lord of the Rings epic battle of three armies or whatever going on at the same time that we have kind of a more traditional end of a Marvel movie, you know, air fight. And then we have this fantastic fight between Killmonger and Black Panther that is really interesting. I mean, that is one of the things this really kind of highlights kind of the strange situation Marvel movies are in that's been talked about a lot, which is their villains are, I'm not going to say weak, even though a lot of them are weak. What I think is interesting is most movies are made by their villains, but Marvel movies really are made by their heroes. And the heroes really are interesting to pay attention to. They really are fun to watch. I would say, for myself, I would put Hugo Weaving's Red Skull up there with Michael B. Jordan in terms of an interesting Marvel villain and an interesting comic book villain. I'm still waiting for him to come back. I think it is. I hear what you're saying about Michael B. Jordan being the best comic book villain since the Joker, but for me, I would put that Joker in such a different category.
Right, sure.
That it's kind of like if you're going to play a mob boss and everybody's comparing you to Marlon Brando, it's kind of like that's a little unfair, even though your mob boss is the best mob boss we've seen in the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Even then, it's still kind of so. But I really did like Eric Killmonger. I really did like to see this really dapper, really put together, really cool Chadwick Boseman Black Panther as this kind of globe-trotting kind of black James Bond. I guess we don't need Idris Elba as James Bond anymore because now we have a black James Bond. He lives in Wakanda.
I would still love
Idris
Elba's James Bond.
That's right. I thought this was really good, but for me, it didn't. I still, and I'm putting this on all Marvel movies. There's something that happens. I don't know. It seems as though there's something within the Marvel makeup that makes it much more likely that movies are going to be good or really good, but always stops them from being great. I did not get a, Star Wars, A New Hope, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Dark Knight vibe where this movie, as much as I like it, did not break into that next level of cinematic greatness.
I'm wondering,
and I don't know. I don't know what's going on with
though,
Marvel.
or is that us? Because
I don't know.
We're old now.
Yeah, that's true.
We've seen some shit. Like,
right.
Maybe like a younger person, this movie would connect for them more on that level because they haven't maybe seen as many movies as us or something.
That is possible. Yeah, I'll definitely cop to that. That is definitely possible.
I think this movie. I think what my first complaint is going to be. It's too long. This movie is too long.
I almost had it.
It is too long. Like it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't even know if the running time is actually that long. But it is definitely over 2 hours. And by the time it gets into the final battles, I'm ready for the battles to kind of be over. Because the movie felt really long to me.
Right.
So that is always my complaint. I always feel like movies need to be just a little tighter. So that's number 1. 2, I felt like I really love Chad Boseman as the Black Panther.
Right.
I really do. I think he's really great. But I also found him to be maybe the least interesting character in this story.
Well, I
think Michael B. Jordan has all the charisma and he's a villain. So therefore he's maybe a little bit more interesting in that respect. But also Black Panther is surrounded by the most amazing female characters. They are so strong and so fully realized with their own motivations and personalities. And they were so fun to watch.
Yes.
Watching this, I kind of had the similar feeling I had while watching Wonder Woman, where I was just like, yes.
Right.
They're so badass. I loved who played his sister, Letitia.
Letitia Wright.
Letitia Wright.
The Q of this James Bond metaphor.
She steals this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
From everybody to me. And I just loved them all. I just thought they were so great. And then you have Angela Bassett in there, who's always badass.
Right.
Always awesome. Always brings it. And then on top of that is just how timely the movie is.
Right.
It really ties into kind of this America First thing that's going on the thing, America First, and there's a lot of debate about immigrants and not letting immigrants into Wakanda and not using thinking about their country first and not going out and helping other people with all their technology and all their power that they have.
Right. And
I think that's really timely and it's really interesting how they talk about it. And there's also a big story about that's kind of Trumpian, the idea of a leader coming in and winning the throne. And the people of Wakanda just are well, we have to respect the throne. Right. And then at one point it's do we respect the throne or do we respect the country? Do we choose country over king?
Right.
And that idea, and these are big ideas for what is a comic book movie.
Yeah, and it's incredibly impressive that they deal with that. And we are going to be I'm not going to say careful here, but we're going to acknowledge and not delve too deeply into the fact that we're two white people talking about a movie with a lot of really nuanced things to say about, African American culture and world African culture that melds it so effortlessly with, a fun, ridiculous, crazy, big, colorful action comic book movie. I mean, that's the thing is I hear what you're saying when it comes to, questions about immigrants and people coming into the country and all that kind of stuff. But, Wakanda is portrayed in the movie and is portrayed in Marvel Comics as the only African country that was never colonized. Mm-hmm. And so its geopolitical and kind of emotional resonance from where its experience is so far different from kind of the American experience that I think there's a lot more to understand about them wanting to say, you know what, we're going to, you guys do whatever you want outside. You're not coming into our borders,
Well, and it says something about the idea that like, what if, slave traders hadn't come and like taken everybody and taken their people, their resources and everything. And what Wakanda represents is like what happens if that hadn't happened, I guess.
True.
And so it's just really, I think, such an interesting thing that it talks about.
Definitely.
And it still like has men in suits like flying around and fighting people, and that's very ambitious. And and sometimes when I say like that's very ambitious, like it sounds like I mean it as something negative. I don't. I mean it as something good. Like this movie has something really smart and interesting and thoughtful to say, and I fucking love that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I hear what you're saying when it comes to describing a movie as ambitious, because usually we only describe movies as ambitious when
it's like an ambitious failure.
When they fail.
Right.
You know what I mean? And this is when you start listing off or thinking through all of the different things that this movie is attempting. And, I would say most Marvel Cinematic Universes or cinematic movies are attempting 3 or 4 things. They're attempting to get you to let you get to know the character, let you get to know the superhero, have some sort of interesting, somewhat moral quandary or thematic thing going on, have some good action, and end in a satisfying way. That's 5 things. This movie does all of those things, plus adds on 20 other things. Mm-hmm. And with a normal Marvel movie, if you can land 4 of those 5 things, you're a success. This one, I would say, landed 18 out of 25. But the level of difficulty on those 25 things that it tried is so high. This is kind of like now that I'm thinking about it, this is gonna come off as almost an insult, I think, but I really do mean this as a compliment. The movie the Black Panther really reminds me of, in a weird way, is Valerian, City of a Thousand Planets.
I haven't seen that, so
not many people
have to explain it to me.
You're in fantastic company, which is that was a comic book series where I think there's like 1,000 or 500 issues or whatever. It's this huge, rich, deep French, long sci-fi comic book series. And when they made the movie, they tried to cram almost everything into 2.5 hours. And it was just ridiculous. It was it looked fantastic, but it was just packed to the gills. It was a mess all over. You could kind of see a good movie in there, but it was just crushed under the ambition of what the director was doing when he finally got to tell that story. Mm-hmm. And here, there have not been a lot of African-American superheroes or action heroes on screen. Mm-hmm. A lot of people this week are talking about Wesley Snipes, and he was the first Black Marvel action hero on screen. Yes, that's true, but that was a rated R movie. That was a totally different ballgame.
Right.
Ryan Coogler has been making movies and dreaming about making movies all his life, and he came out with a saying, I think it was yesterday, that if you had gone back into the Oakland comic book shops where he used to hang out as a kid 20 years ago and told him he's going to be making the Black Panther Marvel movie, he would have, his head would have exploded. And I think about all of the ambition that one personal filmmaker has, and then all of the ambition that, a huge swath of the American film-going audience has to have this kind of character represented for them. And you put all those things on there, and it almost seems like a recipe, an impossible recipe for a satisfying movie.
Yeah.
But the fact that this is so good and so much fun, so satisfying, is just, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And, I think we're talking in a lot of these political terms, and because there are some political questions that it has, but I wouldn't say that this movie isn't any more political than The Dark Knight was about discussing the war on terror.
Or even Civil War.
Or even Civil War, discussing what it means to be a super being that has the ability to destroy cities when you get in a fight with the supervillain. But it's just got so much layered onto it, and the fact that they were able to pull off as much as they were to pull off is spectacular. It's so and it's
bananas to me that Ryan Coogler has made Fruitvale, Creed, and Black Panther. These are very good, different movies.
Yeah.
What an amazing run this guy's having.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was he nominated for Creed, or was he not nominated for Creed?
He was not.
Oh my God!
I think the only thing nominated for Creed was Sylvester Stallone.
I think you might be right. Yeah. Oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, he makes the best Rocky movie of all, and he doesn't even get. Yeah. So, yeah, I am. Now that you put it that way, because I think about how much I love Creed, how much it means to me. I mean, Creed is my number one example of how you revive a movie series, which is what we've talked about. Then we see him go on and do this. Oh, now that you're saying that, I cannot wait for his next movie. I will watch anything.
Do we know what his next movie is? Has he said?
Well, there's some discussions about Black Panther 2, but that's all I've heard. So no, I don't know.
Well, I don't want to get into spoilers, but
I
will say Killmonger's final line in the movie, it got a round of applause.
Yeah,
in the theater I was seeing it in, and that's why I want to come back to how awesome the villain is in this movie,
right?
Because
at this point in the podcast, Sonia Mansfield accidentally spoiled the ending to Black Panther. So, if you have not seen it yet, skip over the rest of this episode, go watch Black Panther, then come back and listen to the rest of this episode. That way, you will not have your heart broken by Sonia's thoughtlessness. We now rejoin Dorking Out, already in progress.
Like I said, there are motivations that make sense here. There's not very often that a villain dies in a comic book movie. Oh God, I just spoiled it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
So when Killmonger, what, Sonia? What happens?
When Killmonger dies, which I don't know if that's really a spoiler. I mean,
yes, it is.
The villains kind of die pretty often in these movies. My point is, usually people don't applaud for villains final words. You know what I mean? His motivations and his plan, there's a good reasoning behind those. And when his final line, it really spoke to the crowd I saw it with. They were into it.
Yeah.
And I should say, I'm seeing it here in San Francisco. I mean, we're just across the bay from Oakland, where some of this movie is set. And, Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, they have a connection to Oakland. So I think there's a little bit of a hometown audience.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, I got to say, there's a very Magneto. I mean, one of my favorite comic book villains in all of, all movies is. Yeah. Sorry. Keep going.
No, I would just say that's a really good comparison. I'd been trying to think of someone, and I hadn't come up with a really good.
Right. Yeah. Magneto's
a great one.
Ian McKellen's Magneto, which is that is the discussion that Charles Xavier, Professor X and Magneto have about how to deal with the world. When you're an X-Men, when you've got these powers, when you can do all these things, the world's afraid of you. The world wants to come at you. That discussion of how you treat the world and how you meet the world is really meaningful. And I am really pretty heartbroken. I'm with you that Killmonger's supposedly dead. I think they now that we're talking about it, I think there might have been a line that hints that maybe they could bring him back. But if he's dead, I think they're missing a huge opportunity because he's got that philosophical discussion is more than worthy for more than one movie.
For sure.
I think it could have been really interesting for him,
That's not the ending. That's not the ending I wanted for this villain.
Right. I think it could have been really interesting for King T'Challa to essentially bring him back into the fold, and then have their friction serve the rest of this series. Because that's the other thing is a lot of times the movies, they show a little sympathetic point of view of the villain, but when you get right down to it, they're dealing with things in not a right way. This was a villain where the good guys really did wrong him, really did screw him over.
Yeah.
Not only is he philosophically coming from a place that's, pretty extreme, but maybe defendable or understandable, but he's also coming from like a personal place of these people really, really did me wrong. And I am following the rules of the Wakandan culture to do what I feel like I need to do to get back in it. And, the way that they kind of reject him again is, it's heartbreaking. I kind of feel like if they had taken out 20% of the story and given him a little bit more breathing room, this could have really hit a Joker level of greatness because we would have had more time to kind of breathe in and soak in his story and his thoughts. Because that was one of the great things about The Dark Knight is that there are moments where there were whole scenes where Batman and the Joker were just talking to each other, and those were electric. And I feel like we didn't really get that
a little less time with Claw.
Exactly.
And a little bit more time with Killmonger.
Exactly. So
I also want to say the cinematography in this movie is really good.
This is
I love the way it looked, and it's the cinematography is by Rachel Morrison, who's also the first female nominated for an Oscar this year.
Right, for
Mudbound.
Right. Yes, this movie, people give Marvel movies kind of a hard time for how they looking kind of generic, looking kind of flat lighting and whatever. I think it's kind of overblown and a bunch of armchair filmmakers teeing off on the biggest thing going on in Hollywood. But there is something to be said for Marvel being a little pull their punches. This movie is not that movie. Mm-hmm. This movie is beautiful, gorgeous, vibrant. It looks like few other Marvel movies, few other comic book movies. And that brings me around to kind of the last thing that I wanted to say is that, there's a lot of lip service paid in, and we've talked about this before, there's a lot of lip service paid to diversity in Hollywood and in a lot of arenas of American culture that are still largely controlled by, Caucasians.
Yes.
And they talk about diversity and they, go on and on about it, but a lot of times it's kind of a diversity of shade rather than a diversity of point of view. Mm-hmm. And this movie, it has Africans and African-American creators from, the director's chair all the way down to the second makeup person. It's, top to bottom. And that brings a real different diversity of point of view of, where the characters are coming from in the story, how they present themselves. I mean, it gives us a lot of the things that we like in movies, which is strong characters and interesting conflicts and all this kind of stuff. But, you were saying earlier that Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther is kind of the least interesting character on screen. And you're right, only because it's insane how interesting all the other characters are. Usually there's like the hero and he's pretty charismatic, and then there's like the funny sidekick and they're charismatic, and then there's the one person that they meet along in 2 scenes and they're charismatic, and that's enough for a movie. This is, I think I was listening to Pop Culture Happy Hour and they were talking about this. They could make a movie about 4 or 5 of these characters that
Absolutely.
I would definitely watch. Oh my God, I would watch. You know what I want? Now that we're talking about this, Disney is creating its kind of Netflix killer. I would kill for a like Wakandan Game of Thrones. Because all these characters are really fantastic. And the one that really stood out for me, and I'm not the only one, is Danai Gurira, who plays the kind of the general of the palace guard.
It's like Okoye or something.
Okoye. Yeah. She is now there's a lot of like, oh, everybody kicks ass and this woman kicks ass and that woman kicks ass and this guy kicks ass, and there's a lot of fetishization of ass kicking in the last couple years. And I think I've talked before about I'm kind of getting irritated and bored with it. She is different. She is strong. She is self-possessed. She does kick. She does kick ass. She does kick ass, but she does it in a way that's not like anything else I think we've seen on screen before. And it is fantastically thrilling to see her, do that. We've gotten a lot of action scenes, and it's always fun to see good action scenes. But B, she's got like a moral quandary.
Yeah, she's got a character arc.
Yeah, she's got a character arc that is really interesting and one of the things that I don't like about this whole kind of kick-ass wave, I should say, is usually those characters, they always beat everybody up in the right way. They always make the right decisions. They always do the right thing. They're usually smarter than everybody and they're ahead of the curve. So they're not interesting to watch, but listening to her kind of side with the bad guy while not selling her own soul out is it's just great.
Her kicking ass is not her defining character trait.
Yes, that's it.
And that's one of the things I loved about Lupita Nyong'o.
Right.
And her character, like, she could have been like, and here's the love interest.
Right.
But that's not what she is. And that's not what her, like, everything about her isn't about Black Panther.
Right.
Like,
right.
She has her own thing that she's doing that's not him, that has nothing to do with him. And she has her own motivations for doing what she's doing.
Right.
And I like that. Like, it's not just about him. And I like that they have, like, her and Okoye have scenes together. They have scenes together with Letitia Wright, who plays, I'm going to get her name wrong. It's like Shuri, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Like, they have their scenes together, like, that don't involve, like, Black Panther's not even there. Like, I like that the women in the movie are really strong, but that's not their defining trait. And they have their own motivations and their own stories and their own arcs that are separate. From Black Panther. Yeah, that's a big deal. Like, when in all these other Marvel movies, and I don't want to shit all over Marvel movies because I like them, but like, kind of like our only women are like Black Widow, and
Pepper Potts,
and then we get like Scarlet Witch later, and all of them are tied to like a romantic subplot.
Right. Yeah, and that's a thing that I think is their defining trait, is not their kick-assness, it's their professionalism. We've talked about this before. It's like professional porn, where they are really good at their job. They're really well defined, and it's killing me because there was this. We were just talking. Oh yeah, in an upcoming episode, we're going to be talking about Superman. We're going to do a deep dorking out about Superman with Jeff Bond, and we were talking about that movie where at every, Superman is well defined, Lois Lane, Perry White, Lex Luthor, Otis, Miss Tessmacher. It's like the further down you go, the characters are still really well defined, really drawn out. And, Jeff pointed out, there was a guy on an elevator that they had this, he had 2 lines, but it gave him this whole, meaningful character moment that added something to the movie. And, we were talking about with that movie is like not a lot of movies these days go to that level to give every single person on screen some meaningful character moment. And maybe that's why this movie's standing out so much for me, because this is like, in a weird way, a very old-fashioned movie where every single character is well written and meaningfully defined. And it's fantastic. It's great. Yeah. So, yes.
I think we like this one.
I think we did. What's your number for this, would you say? On a scale of 0 to 10?
Like an 8, 8.5.
Mm-hmm. You know what? It's funny. When I walked out, I was thinking 7, 7.5. But the more we talk about it and the more I think about it, it's kind of inching up and up and up. I need to see it again. I don't know if it could hit 9 or go past, but yeah, maybe. So
it's just a really good movie. Like, it's really fun and thoughtful.
Yeah.
And it's got a voice and something to say.
Right.
It's awesome.
Right. Exactly.
Go see it.
So, Sonia Mansfield, is there anything else you'd like to say before we do 3 more shows and then have to go back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe to talk about it some more?
No, I'll just say goodbye.
Bye!